This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Well, hello everybody, welcome to Wednesday night. It is time for another episode of Party Loaded. It is, in fact, the 29th of August, last show of August. We're powering straight on out of this month into the, it's going to be spring season for us here in Australia proper, but fall everywhere around the world, which of course means that things are about to get nuts. My name's Luke Retallick. I'm here to talk about all the nuts stuff and everything that's great in the world of video games with my three party members tonight. We have Matt, we have Christian, we have Adrian.
Hello. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah. All right. Well, have we got a packed agenda for everybody tonight? Oh, diddly. There's some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So if we were to have like a theme song for tonight, what do you think it would be? Like starting to get into hype season. Is there anything you can think of that would fit the mood?
I feel like you're leading us towards something, but I don't know what it is. No,
honestly not.
No.
Like, we were talking about music before the show, but I'm just thinking in terms of music at the moment. Like like we were talking about, this is a little bit of, off-camera stuff. So we were talking about sort of how different soundtracks reminded us of different things that we might have been playing earlier in our lives. And just got me thinking that, certain times of year, there are certain feelings with regards to different releases. And I love to think about what kind of backdrop sound would be appropriate for that kind of thing. So I don't know, what do you associate with hype? Like what kind of music would you associate with getting excited about new game releases?
There's one song that always gets me hyped up, and it doesn't really make any sense, but it's Crush the Losers by Regurgitator. For some reason, I don't know. For some reason, I remember listening to that song when I was like a teenager and going like, yeah, and really loving it. And for some reason, ever since then, whenever I want to get hyped up, I put that song on. And it's just this random one song from my childhood that gets me really worked up. So maybe at the start of the month, when we start seeing some of these new releases get rolled out, I might chuck that on and get hyped up.
Crush the Losers. That's cool. I remember that. That's a super blast from the past. But
my two go-to like soundtracks for getting hyped are the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance soundtrack and the Kill la Kill anime soundtrack. The OST. They're both fantastic.
Beastie Boys Sabotage for me.
Oh, Beastie Boys.
Good choice.
Excellent choice.
I'm similar, but I'd probably go Intergalactic for me.
I mean, let's face it, if I really want to get hyped up, then I listen to some classic barbershop tunes, and that just gets me really revved. So.
That's funny because it's true.
Yeah. No, as far as theme music goes, though, like one that would get me hyped and also be pretty appropriate for what's coming up is The Day Is My Enemy by The Prodigy.
Yeah.
Because holy shit, the amount of sleep that I'm going to be losing in the next coming weeks, that's going to be a theme worth singing about.
Invaders Must Die by Prodigy, actually, as well.
Yeah.
That's a hype track.
Prodigy's always pretty good. So I was going to sing the Spider-Man theme, though. So
It's appropriate.
Spider-Man theme.
Yeah.
I've got one for you. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Everything's going dark. I don't feel good, Mr. Stark. Oh no. Spider-Man.
I think I heard people unsubscribing from our podcast just in response to that song.
iPhone's turning to dust.
So, I was so going to bank that for a few weeks' time, but anyway.
No.
So, what?
I said that on Facebook and people were getting a good laugh out of it. So
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about some games. So I think that given that we've still got a bunch of stuff ahead, we've done pretty well this week. So now I'm not going to put Christian on the spot and talk about how he's still losing at Hearthstone, but you
I'm
get
not losing.
close,
I'm
buddy.
like exactly 50% win rate. I'm making no progress either way. I'm just stuck in purgatory. But my tournament's going to end as soon as the month resets, and I'm forced back to the start. So only a few more days.
We believe in you,
right?
You can do it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh no. Well, I mean, it's better than dropping ranks like a rock. So that's something.
I am going to try right up until the crack of midnight. So
I'm not going to lie. Every day I check my phone expecting a message from you with a screenshot with just like jubilant cries saying that you've made legend.
Hopefully.
and then a picture of Christian just crawled up in a fetal position. Just finally. Speaking of Hearthstone, I just earlier today watched the Honest trailer for World of Warcraft's latest expansion. And the tagline at the end was World of Hearthstone. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty good nowadays. That's awesome. But speaking of WoW, let's do a very quick progress update because I don't want to talk about World of Warcraft for too long tonight, given that we had a good run with it last week. Matt, how are you doing with your progress
really
on that? Anything
Yeah,
exciting?
so my girlfriend and I, we hit level 60, and we got through Ungoro, and we were headed out into Silithus, and I was like, we shouldn't do Silithus just because there's going to be a gigantic sword out there, and the timeline's going to be all messy, and you're going to be confused because she hasn't played World of Warcraft before. And we were pleasantly surprised when we got out there and there's no gigantic sword. It's actually the old Silithus area. So they're doing some really, really interesting stuff with instancing where, because we haven't hit that Legion content yet, the world hasn't changed for us. And if they're doing that for a whole zone, I think that's really, really exciting for the prospects of Battle for Azeroth and the sort of things they could end up doing. Like, you could have players that are brand new undead characters still doing stuff for in and around the Undercity, even though when you hit a certain level, you might actually be an Alliance character that can actually be in the Undercity because now you own it. Like, that's really interesting to me. I think that's super cool. So
yeah, gives them a good springboard for narrative content moving forward off this expansion too. That's really cool. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't understand what Matt's talking about with regards to the giant sword, and I'm assuming Christian and Adrian, you'd be part of this as well, at the end of the Legion storyline, I can't remember who it was. It was like a giant godlike creature that was about as... it was Sargeras.
Not a Hearthstone card, so I don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, Sargeras, big bad, basically giant godlike creature. He was, about as big as Azeroth, the planet itself. And in the final act, which you actually get to view like some flashbacks of this when you get into the Battle for Azeroth content, which is cool, you actually see him pull out a giant sword and embed it in Azeroth, the planet itself. And this thing is like continent size, like it's a sword that just cuts right down through the crust. And one of the central conceits of Battle for Azeroth is that there's this new element bubbling to the surface as a result of this giant wound in the planet.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's the Azerite that you're hunting for, which powers all of your new gear. So yeah, it's pretty cool. The actual sight of this giant sword, like Matt's obviously not appropriate level to see it yet. It'll probably get instanced when you're higher level. It looks freaking cool. Like completely changes.
So I went and actually bought Battle for Azeroth, and I went and boosted my Shaman, and I've done a little bit of leveling on him, so he's currently 112. But I have seen that, so I have seen that zone now. It looks awesome. But I just think it's really funny that Sargeras has really good aim and just stabbed right through one of the most boring zones in the game.
Maybe it was intentional. I don't know.
He knew it could only be improved with a good stabbing. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, about 10 minutes before starting the show tonight, I managed to ding max level. So my Troll Shaman is now 120. And that unlocked a ton of new dungeons, which is cool. So I'm going to jump in and start playing around with some of those a little bit later. But one thing I will say now, having gone through, I'd say a fair chunk of the new content, I've still got a bit to go, but I've been holding off doing the last portion of it because Imogen and I have kind of been quest buddies over the last few nights, and I don't want to do the last part of that area without teaming up with her, is that Sylvanas, for all the controversy with her early on in the story arc, she just pisses off and doesn't come back for most of the rest of it. So I saw her again finally at the end, but she's kind of not really a big part of the rest of it. So I think maybe she'll show up in some of the raid content that's yet to come. So I'm sure they're going to find ways to sort of, I guess, push that story a bit further. But like, a hot tip for anyone who is looking forward to that sort of content, I would highly recommend avoiding some of the dungeons until you hit max level and finish a couple of those zones, because there are super big spoiler things in those dungeons. So and if you do them before doing the content, you'll probably have a few reveals wrecked for you. So just my advice. It's something you probably don't want to wreck for yourself. But yeah, otherwise, super cool. The spirit of death, the lower by the name of Bonswamni, he's like I guess, very Rastafarian style death god. He is one of, if not the best new character of the expansion. He is super, super cool. So yeah, just, I don't know. He speaks like a real sort of drugged out sort of Lord of Death that just makes deals. And he's a bit of a Crossroads demon type character. He's really cool. So Matt, you'll enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
It occurred to me during the week after remembering our conversation on last week's podcast about you mentioning the gods being called Loa. That's actually what the Haitian voodoo gods are called in Haitian culture.
Very cool.
Yeah,
that makes complete
they're called
sense.
Loa. So if you're familiar with the whole... This is the only thing I can relate it to, so you have to forgive me for being a Disney
Is it
freak.
Princess and the Frog?
Yes, Princess and the Frog. So the villain from Princess and the Frog is modelled after Baron Zemedi, who is a Loan death god. And it's the classic, like, skeleton skull face with the top hat and the cane. That kind of image that you may have seen in pop culture and around different places is actually based on a Loan death god. But yeah, it just occurred to me that, like, it sounds like there's a bit of a voodoo influence in some of the areas in the new expansion. And connected with that word lower, it makes sense that it's all kind of tied in together.
Yeah, there's one of the 3 main horde zones in particular that is just rife with that content.
Cool.
So that makes a total sense. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of references from elsewhere too. Like the zone that I was talking about last week, the very big Aztec-y kind of zone. They have ripped a lot of that straight out of the Marvel universe with regards to Wakanda. Yeah. Like even down to the NPCs going, Zandalaf.
Yes,
okay.
I noticed that. I was going to bring that up. I thought that
Do
was
they
really cute.
cross their hands over their like chest? Like the salute?
I think a few of them do
really?
actually. Yeah, I think so. I'm not going to 100% confirm that, but I think that might be the case. Yeah, but no, it's all good. So yeah, World of Warcraft is still being a lot of fun. So Matt, did you have anything else that you wanted to chat about?
So I made sure to actually get some time in with another game that wasn't just World of Warcraft. So I played a little bit of Not Tonight. Which is a game that takes place in an alternate reality Britain in 2018, where they've left the European Union much harder, much earlier than they had in our timeline. And you play...
This is a Brexit-themed game. Is that what you're saying?
It's a Brexit-themed game.
It sounds like a game where your partner turns you down in bed.
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
But yeah, you play a character that's born in Britain but has enough European heritage that they are on the deportation list. And you have to earn enough money to stay in the country, so because they don't deport people that earn over like $2,500 a month, and you're stuck with terrible jobs as a bouncer, and basically it's Papers, Please. Yeah. It's really, really cool. There's a lot of English humor in there. It's really good fun. I had a lot of fun with it from what I've played so far, but basically, yeah, it's Papers, Please. There's no other comparison about it.
So it's the same sort of system where you're checking people's documents for like inconsistencies, and then okay, very similar then.
So the whole game is basically around this whole idea that you're picking up jobs. You've been assigned the task of being a bouncer, and you basically have to pick up jobs from bars, and they're all pretty sketchy places, and you're checking people's IDs to make sure that they're actually old enough to go into the bar, or that their ID is up to date and that sort of thing. And you're turning them away if they don't have a proper ID and all that stuff. It's basically the Papers, Please, but you're a bar bouncer. So
is it as depressing as Papers, Please? And does it like weigh on your conscience?
Yes. So it doesn't weigh on your conscience for turning people away because you're just telling them no, they can't have a drink, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's depressing in the fact that it's much more about your character and this really shitty situation they're in. And the fact that, the whole country around you is kind of falling apart as a result of this. It's very political in much the same way that Papers, Please was very political. So, yeah.
I was just getting images then of having to present papers in bed and still getting them tonight. So that's kind of worrying. Anyway.
The expansion would be called I Have a Headache.
I have a headache, yeah.
No, the expansion is just exactly what it is. Anyway,
no.
So, yeah, last week we talked about, was it last week? Yeah, it was. We talked about a couple of Metroidvanias that we were keen on that were coming up, and I did my homework and played one of them, but Adrian, you got to play the other one, which you were super psyched about.
Yes.
So what's going on with Guacamelee 2?
So despite all my gushing last week in regards to Hollow Knight, which I did boot up and try to get back into, my attention was drawn away by Guacamelee 2, and I must say I've been playing it whenever I can, and it's fantastic. I really love it. Even more than the first one, I think, because they've just sort of, I think they've really improved on a few of the things.
All right, so lay down, what have they actually changed from the first one?
Okay. Well, look, you're putting me on the spot because I haven't played the first one for a while, but the main thing I've noticed is that they've made each of, like, as you progress through the game, I should preface it by saying I think Guacamelee 2 is, as far as Metroidvanias go, it's very fast. So unlike let's use Super Metroid as an example because it's sort of one of the penultimate ones. That's kind of
Let's just compare it to the greatest game
Sure,
ever made.
why
That's
not?
a great bar to set. All right, come on.
or even compared to Hollow Knight, those games have far more exploration. So in those games, you might explore each section of the map, uncover secrets, find an area that you can't quite get into, and you sort of have to move up and down, left and right, and backtrack through a lot of areas. So in that sense, Guacamelee 2 almost feels quite linear in a way. So it is Metroidvania in that the world is connected, but often you're rushing from point A to point B, and the game will just bring you back through other areas without you kind of realizing. So you don't have to open the map, figure out where you need to go, and backtrack too much. The game just kind of points you in the right direction and teleports you around. So as a result, it's almost like you're just running one massive long obstacle course. But
in Guacamelee 1, there were like the different colored blocks, and when you unlock the different like moves, that would let you break that kind of block. Is that system still in it?
That is the same, yeah. So it does the classic thing, although it does it in a very funny and clever way where in the sequel, obviously in the first game, you built up all your powers. So in the sequel, they have to take those powers away from you so you can gain them back again. And they work it in quite funny. I won't spoil it, but it's a good little laugh. But you do build up those powers again, and you do get a few new ones that you didn't have in the first game. But probably the most delightful thing about the game is that obviously, like any kind of Metroidvania, it's made up of a bit of puzzle solving and a bit of combat. But I've been pleasantly surprised at how every puzzle room that you need to work out is unique, and not a lot of it is repeated. And it strikes a really nice balance where they'll introduce a new mechanic, you'll learn it, you'll make a few mistakes and start again, and then once you get the hang of it, solving each of those little sections and puzzles is super rewarding. So I've played a lot of other games where they'll introduce mechanics and then they take them away from you a very short time after and you don't get to use them much more. But one good thing about Guacamelee 2 is how it's sort of peppered throughout the whole game. You do use all your abilities pretty much all the time, even as you unlock new ones. You're still using the abilities you unlocked ages ago, so it's structured quite well in that regard. The combat is fantastic, of course. You know, it's probably one of the best things. And to its testament, what the way the combat will work is you'll be progressing through the Metroidvania style environment, and then you'll enter a room, and two like walls will get slapped down and trap you in the corridor that you're in, and then start a fight, and enemies will drop in and you fight them. And that's kind of like how enemies are introduced all the way through the game, where the game will actually stop, constrict you in a room, and then just chuck the room full of enemies. And that sounds like it wouldn't be very enjoyable, but it actually really is, because as you go through the game, all you want to do is just pound on enemies and get huge combos. So that works.
Yeah, because the combat's very combo oriented, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's a lot
very
of
combo
air
oriented.
juggling and dashing and keeping like your combos going, and
Yeah,
very
exactly.
satisfying.
So the more enemies on screen, the better you can execute those moves. Is that kind of how it goes?
And it's funny because sometimes the enemies will die and you're like, oh, damn it, I wanted to keep that combo going. I was having a lot of fun just juggling them and seeing how long I could keep it going for. So it does reward you for like keeping a combo streak and not breaking it. But I just think it's, as far as sort of existing in the genre, I think it does a really good job of having its own identity, which is really good. It's not like any other Metroidvania I've played. And probably the best thing about it is that it's really funny. Like there's not many games where I actually chuckle out loud to myself, but Guacamelee has done it over and over again. And it's really surprising and funny and self-referential, and yeah, it's great. So
That's good.
Big fan.
I've been looking at a bunch of reviews over the week, and it seems that most of the things that reviewers have dinged the game on is people who found that the humour didn't sort of resonate with them. But that seems so subjective to me that
They
doesn't
had that
really
problem in the
indicate a
first
bad
game
game
as
at
well.
all.
In the first game, they had a lot of like very brief like internet memes, like very over memes in the first game, like Rage Comics and Me Gusta and that sort of stuff. And they actually ended up patching those memes out of the game because it was so unpopular.
Yeah, there's a really funny nod to that in Guacamelee 2. Like, it's really great. They really hang a lantern on that in this section. So
Well, that's good.
without spoiling the story, one of the main themes of it is sort of alternate timelines within the game. So it opens up the scope to visit like alternate realities and alternate dimensions, and they use that to their advantage to add a lot of like video game humor into it. So like there's a classic one in the trailer where one comes across a guy who's like standing by his brand new red car, and it's on a pier, and there's like a cargo ship in the background, and he just is eyeing off this car, and you can choose to walk right past it if you want, or you can just go full Street Fighter on it and beat the crap out of it, and it's great. You know, it's a nice little nod to Street Fighter, and there's quite a few of those all the way through the game, which is really good.
Cool.
I think I would really dig that kind of
Me too. I'm checking it out.
and like you said last week, Luke, 300% more chicken. There is definitely 300% more chicken, and in fact, it's one of the best parts of the game, because in the original game, you eventually get a power that lets you turn into a chicken. And it's basically used the same way that Samus's morph ball is used to get you through like tight spots and like through little corridors. But in the first one, that's all you used it for, was to like get through tiny passages. But in the new one, you spend, you know, probably a third, if not just as much of the game in chicken form, beating the crap out of people as a chicken as you do as a luchador. So that's quite a lot of fun too.
That's awesome. So proven by science,
That's right.
300%
Exactly.
chicken. Yeah. Well, you may not have gotten to Hollow Knight, Adrian, but I did. I decided to take your advice and jump in and sample that thing. And I waited until the Godmaster DLC, the final DLC, dropped, not realizing that wouldn't matter at all, because I'm not going to actually get to that content until much later in the game, because apparently it's actually walled off inside the map, and you need to progress through a considerable amount of the game to actually find it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not like a side-loaded menu sort of content. It's built into the game proper. Yeah. So yeah, probably unsurprising, I love Hollow Knight. It is exactly my kind of game. You were quite correct, sir. You were quite correct. So look, I would probably compare it fairly closely to Ori and the Blind Forest in a lot of ways. Actually, I think that there's definitely some similarities. Ori is a lot more about kind of using the platforming elements of the screen and sort of, traversal and flying around and a lot of gravity-defying stuff while having sort of a lesser amount of combat. I think Hollow Knight focuses a lot more on the combat side of the game and probably more of the exploration side as well. I think that, the overall maps appear to be bigger from what I've seen. The game appears to be a bit longer from what I've read as well. I've gotten probably about 8 hours in, and I know I've only scratched the surface because there's going to be a ton more stuff. But the one thing that sort of reminded me a lot of Ori actually is the fact that the central protagonist, like IEU, again, is that bright sort of white speck on the screen, just draws your eye to it no matter where you are or what you're doing. It's just that visual trick that really gets you to hone in on the central character, even though the rest of the landscape around him is just absolutely stunning to look at. It kind of makes him stand out, which is a really cool visual trick. I like games that sort of do that in subtle ways. But it's cool. Like the combat's rewarding, the upgrades are great, the platforming stuff is a lot of fun. There's some non-intuitive parts about the gameplay that kind of caught me out a little bit though. Like I noticed as I was playing, there's a lot of destructible elements in the background and in the scenery. Yep. And I thought to myself, why is that? Like, there's got to be a reason behind that rather than just flavor, because, it was done everywhere. And I thought, man, the extra effort that it would have taken to do that doesn't make sense to me. But then I realized after a little while that you can actually swing your nail, which is basically your sword, downwards and bounce off some of them if you attack at the right moment as you're sort of jumping around. And it wasn't until I worked that out by mistake that I realized you could do that on some of the lethal sort of hazards as well, like the spike pits and stuff. You can actually swipe down at and bounce over. And as soon as I realized that, it was like a massive light bulb, and I was like, holy shit, there's like 3 areas that now I can get through that I didn't realize I could do before. So yeah, but the game doesn't really teach you that at all. It was kind of an accident that I worked it out. So maybe not quite as intuitive. That's a good and a bad thing, though. I think it's good to have the challenge. It's bad that sometimes you have to find these things out by consulting a wiki. But I don't know. It is what it is. But the story, I don't know. Do you get more of the background story behind the actual character as you progress through the game? So I'm getting the feeling at the moment that while you interact with quite a few characters and get a lot of information about the world, there's really not a lot about you.
Yeah, that's kind of what makes it great, I think, is that, and it is very Souls-like. Yeah, it's very Dark Souls. So it's kind of what I hinted at sort of when I was first talking about Hollow Knight, about how you get dropped into the world, and it's like a world in progress. The story has already started, and your character is arriving in this sort of ghost town while the story's already underway, and all the characters around you already have their own motivations, and you're almost like a passenger on board, and like, almost like a spectator at times. And the best thing about it is, I'm convinced there's plenty of information about you But it's that kind of Dark Souls kind of way they do it, where they're not just going to give you the information, you have to work it out on your own. And it's the sort of thing where you might sit down and read a wiki about Hollow Knight and go, okay, so that means that's connected to that. Oh, cool, I understand it now. And then a week later, you would have forgotten everything just because of how convoluted it is. But I think that's what makes it really great. I think it's nice to have a bit of mystery in these kinds of games without, having the story spoon-fed to you all the time. I think
I really like that. It's like every Souls game is technically post-apocalyptic. You're always coming in after some civilization has fallen and fighting kind of remnants.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happens in Hollow Knight. You arrive in a busted old town, and there's an ancient civilization below the ground. And if you were to, here's a real testament to it. If you were to sit down, take all the lore out of Hollow Knight, and then tell someone the story without explaining that they're cartoon bugs, people would think it was a Souls game with the way it's written. Like there's nowhere in there where it talks about everything. They're all cute little insects. It's never said that. It's treated as if it's like the most serious, dark fantasy world that's ever been created. But also, you stab ladybugs and they go pop, and that's fun too.
To the game's credit, they picked the perfect title for it as well, because it absolutely leans into the central mechanic of the game too, which is the fact that you have like a vessel for which you gather soul energy, and that is actually your life force. And you are effectively a knight in the way that you're sort of, combating these other, militarized style bugs down there. So I really dig that. The whole thing where you actually die and you have to chase down your shade so that you can actually put your body back into like a whole state rather than a damaged state, I think is really cool as well.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to keep repeating it, straight out of Dark Souls, right? I mean, even
it is,
you're called a hollow in Dark Souls. So even using the word hollow there is straight from Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And
I think it's we are kind of seeing that kind of a trend of taking, because I mean Dark Souls defined a whole new genre of games. So, and people love it so much because it really rings true with people. So taking that kind of world and sort of air of mystery and applying it to something like a Metroidvania, and then slapping this, well, not slapping because that sounds haphazard, but creating this beautiful hand-drawn art style of cute insects. It's just really unique, and that's what I really love about it. It's just like a truly unique game. I haven't played anything else like it.
Yeah. Big ups to Team Cherry. Big fan of this one. I'm going to play a whole bunch of it this week and try and finish it off, amongst the other stuff I'm playing, of which last game I just want to talk about tonight, and I'll be brief on this one because I'm only about 5 hours in. So Yakuza Kiwami 2 dropped yesterday. And I thought, well, I don't have enough dumb Japanese cultural dumbfuckery in my life, so I'm going to pick this thing up and have a great time. So, yeah, oh man. I mean, I'm on record from many, many episodes of this show sort of talking about my love of the Yakuza series since I first picked up and started playing it. I only... being the number of chapters in that I'm fairly confident at this point that this is the best one of the series so far. So, yeah. And that's for a few different reasons. The chief of which being that I think some of the slightly more complicated mechanics of the game in terms of how the leveling and the fighting and different bits and pieces have worked in the previous games, I think that they've sanded the rough edges off of it just enough for this one that it's now perfected the formula, and I can't really think of much else that I'd change to make it better. So, the heat moves, which are kind of like your sort of activated sort of, fill your bar up, execute a special power kind of moves, smoother than ever. Your finishes are great. There's more environmental sort of fighting sort of triggers than ever before. One thing I love about this game that they've done with the combat is you can be brawling in the middle of the streets now and actually take the fight inside buildings. Like you can literally throw a dude through a window of a shop, go in, and then start smacking the shit out of him with the table and chairs inside of a restaurant. Cool. So good. Like it doesn't break the immersion at all when you're going from outside to inside, and that goes for when you visit just about anywhere in the game as well. So, and I respect the hell out of that. That's really, really cool. But a couple of the things that make the Yakuza games like really, really fun, just the humor and the dialogue, and it is on point in this game. There is some classic stuff. Like within the first half an hour, I was getting involved in an argument with a dude on the street, and he was sort of saying, "Oh, what are you doing? Strutting around like a peacock." And you actually get some dialogue options in terms of how to respond this time. Like it's not just you auto respond with one or two things. Now you actually have a choice. So the choice that I made in that instance was I just peacocked your wife, which I thought was particularly witty. So yeah, that was good. And all the mini games are in there. They've actually got, I'm pretty sure the full game of Virtua Fighter is in this thing.
I've heard that.
So,
cool.
Yeah, and it reminds me exactly of the original Virtua Fighter in terms of like the gameplay and the graphics and everything, like that sort of, you know, blocky pixel sort of characters and the Drunken Master and all that stuff. It's pretty bang on. But there was one mini game that I discovered last night that I was sharing some pictures with you guys about. There is a pissing mini game. Like, you literally go into a toilet. There is a dude who invites you to take part in his experimental project, and you go in and you play a mini game involved around standing at a urinal and having a battle with a dude trying to basically like push his stream back so that you win.
Hang on.
It is weird.
Has someone been watching me when I go into a public toilet? Because this is like a word for word account of what happened to me the other day.
I thought it would be like one of those kid things, like where you try and like hit a target or something like that. Not this fucking weird Ghostbusters don't cross the streams tug of war bullshit. It's just, man, it's weird. But yeah, I think the only downside that I've seen so far is that one of the fan favorite characters, Goro Majima, he is in the game apparently. He's, you know, one of the guys that you just love seeing throughout the series because he's an absolute crazy bastard. But what they've done with his content, from what I can tell, is he's like a side story that you kind of activate from the main menu rather than him being sort of threaded throughout the main narrative. Which it's kind of good and bad because you can kind of, you know, get it and consume it all together rather than sort of disrupting the main story, which I guess makes a bit of sense. But the fact that it then consequently kind of doesn't mean anything as far as the core narrative goes, I'm not sure I'm real great with that.
That's a consequence of it being a remake, right? And in the original Yakuza 2, that Majima content wasn't in it, from what I understand.
That's true, but they have introduced other new concepts to the other remake. Well, I was going to say remakes, but Yakuza Kiwami was probably the only one that I could really point to with regards to that stuff. So I think
it's just like because people love him so much or whatever. They're having Majima content in there, but they also aren't changing the sort of core story of the original game, I guess.
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah, the core story is definitely one of the best so far. Sometimes the games have a bit of an issue with taking a while to ramp up and actually reveal things, but the big difference with this one is that the main central villain makes himself known very early on. And I think that's actually a really good thing with this game. I mean, there's typically additional villains that kind of get revealed throughout the Yakuza games, but having one to focus on from the get-go really raises the stakes to a point which sort of drives the narrative at a good pace. So I'm a big fan of that. But man, this game is cool. It's good. I'm going to play a bunch more this week and report back. So anyway, that is Yakuza Kiwami 2. Let's get stuck into some news stuff. So now, we don't want to sort of dwell on this too much tonight because I think that, there's probably a lot of other shows that have done a sufficient job of this and this perhaps isn't the place to really do it. So anyone who has been paying attention to happenings in the games industry this week would no doubt be aware that there was an absolutely tragic, senseless shooting, another mass shooting in the US at an esports tournament in Jacksonville at a Madden NFL event. So, I mean, absolute tragedy. Everybody who's involved, obviously, there's been a lot of stuff going on about, the support offered to that community. And it was 2 fatalities and the additional gunman who was the third, from what I understand. And, everyone's been, in a bit of shock over the whole event. But I think this is definitely not the time and place to sort of get into the who's and what fors about, what led to that kind of thing. And I think everybody has their own opinions on that. But one thing I just wanted to touch on tonight was how the industry has kind of responded to what's happened. And I think that this kind of comes under the fear that maybe it was only a matter of time before we'd have to deal with something like this as far as large gaming events go. And one of the unfortunate consequences now is that a lot of the event organisers from some of the larger shows around the place, and I mean, PAX West is happening just this weekend, I believe. So ReedPop are one of the first that are going to have to kind of deal with it and really sort of set the public mind at ease with regards to large crowded places and the risk of that kind of thing taking place again. So, which unfortunately just seems to be a everyday part of life over in the US these days. So, I mean, does that make any of you guys feel differently about sort of large, major conventions or sort of, esports events or anything else? Because you only have to look at like the Dota International that took place recently as well, and the huge number of people attending that kind of event. The tragedy, if anything should go wrong, is now pretty fresh in everyone's mind.
It doesn't affect how I feel about these things, to be honest. Even as tragic as it is, I'm not going to let that sort of thing affect my enjoyment of an event like that. It's still statistically so unlikely, and I just the one takeaway I'm not going to have from it is to feel scared. So
yeah. I think for me, like I've traveled to the US quite often, in past for the Game Developers Conference, and the Game Developers Conference people were some of the people that actually responded because of the fact that, that's a huge event of a whole bunch of game developers getting together in one place, and it could absolutely happen there. And as an Australian going into the United States, and then the fact that the gun culture is so very, very different, it is scary. Like, you step off that plane into the United States, and it's like it's a very different feeling, because that's a thing that there's just kind of accepted there that wouldn't be accepted here. But it's not exactly like, at the same time, per capita, your likeliness of actually getting shot is incredibly low. Like, the likeliness of that actually happening. But it's a terrifying thought that it has happened to people in past, and you don't want to be that person that it happens to, right? So certainly for me, gun violence in the United States wouldn't stop me going to the United States for those sorts of events. But I think it's always going to be a thought in the back of your mind when you're coming from Australia, going over there to something like that. I think in Australia itself, I have no concerns about PAX Australia. Like, I'm not worried about going to an event like that. So
yeah, I mean, they managed to keep all the deadly animals out of PAX Australia, so we're pretty much okay on that account. So yeah, we just named the lecture theatres after them instead. That's how we roll.
They still manage to let you in every year, though, Luke.
Mate, I'm a different kind of animal. I'm not a deadly one. That's for sure. Yeah, no, it's a tricky situation. I think that there'll be a lot of people that are really stinging from this, particularly because, when it comes to gaming, this is one of the forms of escapism that allows us to take our mind off the real world in a lot of ways. And, this kind of invading that space is more sort of stunning to a lot of people than anything else. But, I mean, fortunately, not everywhere else around the world that, has a huge part of the industry on display is going to have to deal with things in the same way.
Yeah,
so,
and in Australia as well, like Morgan Jaffett pointed out, like, the news was completely filled with that event in Florida on the same day that an Australian won one of the big events, one of the big game tournaments.
The Dota International.
It should have been, it could have been an opportunity to actually make that a bit more popularized in Australia, but instead we're talking about that shooting, obviously, right? Like, I'm not going to say that sucks for us more than what happened with the shooting, because the shooting is awful, but it's so hard to find that traction as an industry to move ahead when stuff like this happens.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, no one's been sort of coming out and blaming EA or the event organisers, really, and sort of pointing fingers. So I think people understand that there's only so much you can do when shit like this happens. There's reasonable caution, and then there's just a level which you can't sort of go beyond unless you want to live in a police state. But Twitch has also turned around as well and said that they're going to remove any clip that contains footage of the shooting as well.
Fair enough. I mean, everything's going to be mirrored, but they can do their best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just having a zero tolerance approach to that kind of thing, I think is the right approach. Yep. And, a lot of the businesses have been doing right by what's gone on. So that's good to see at the very least in, an otherwise shitty circumstance. So, yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to something a bit more positive. Spider-Man. We need to talk about Spider-Man a lot in the coming weeks, but let's talk about it briefly now. Did you guys see the news that not only is the game launch coming out real soon, we've actually got 3 DLC expansions coming later this year on top of the main game.
Yes.
So that is crazy. I will admit I've got mixed feelings about this, and the reasons why will probably be pretty obvious. But I think we're going to be on the same page, Christian. But anyway, the expansions are, just before we get into that, the first one is called the city. Well, sorry, the overall expansion is called the City That Never Sleeps, and it's going to be three parts to that. So first of all, we're going to have the heist. Which is going to be introducing Felicia Hardy, so Black Cat for Spider-Man fans who probably should be familiar with that. And a new enemy faction and a bunch of new suits. There's going to be an expansion following that called Turf Wars in November, and then one in December called Silver Lining, which, seems like that might sort of go into the Silver Sable stuff a bit more. So the content as a whole is going to be bundled for $24.99 US. Or you can purchase individual chapters for $9.99 each. But anyone who's picked up the digital deluxe edition of the game will get all of it included for free. So now, Christian, go ahead and say what you're going to say, because I'm pretty sure it's on my lips and you might go for it.
I'm going to just repeat something that's been repeated basically at least since Mass Effect 2, which is don't tell me about content that's coming out later before I've even played your game. Like, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I don't care really about DLC until I know your game is good and I've played your game, and I want to focus on the game itself before I start opening my wallet again for a second purchase. And the other thing for me too is I'm actually not a huge DLC guy in general. I can't think of many games, particularly open world games, where I've actually gone back, loaded up my old save to play DLC. Even games I've loved, like The Witcher 3, I haven't gone back and played that DLC because I absorb a game, I love a game, and then I kind of forget about it, and it's very difficult for me to go back for DLC in general. So
I think that's really evident with our recent stint in Monster Hunter on the PS4.
Yeah, for sure.
Where I remember when we were all playing it, we were like, it's going to be so great with the DLC. I haven't looked at a single DLC monster since that game's come out, really. So I think you're really onto something there, Christian, with DLC not appealing to certain people, and I think I'm in the same camp as you when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, look, you made an interesting point bringing up Witcher. So Witcher 3, I think, is a good example of DLC done right in that there's enough degree of separation between the main game launch and the additional content coming out that it feels like an additional sort of, lavishing extra love on a game that's already popular because people want more and more.
Yeah,
and
the
more.
release schedule side of it was definitely better handled. They didn't talk about any of that before the game came out, but it's still, for me, like, it's having to relearn systems, remember what the world is like and what the mechanics are like. I've usually moved on to something else and I don't go back to reabsorb games like that. So
I get that. I think that maybe there's a target audience that's not you.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
The fact that the game, like in terms of The Witcher, the game is already so massive, and just adding extra content on, just seemed like additional on top of something that we never expected. Particularly because some of the later Witcher expansions were, full game size in their own right, which was just absolutely mind blowing at the time. But the thing with Spider-Man is that there's been a lot of reports going around the last week in terms of the game length, and a lot of the chatter around that at the moment is that it's about a 20-hour or so game, which for Insomniac, that's not particularly short. That's kind of on par with what they've done in the past, but that is still not a massive game for a single-player narrative-focused adventure. And when you start talking about additional DLC that's already planned and will be released the immediate months following that, my immediate question is, why couldn't you just put that in the game?
That's kind of my packaging it to my first point about, like, not talking about this stuff before the game's already out. It feels like it is kind of cut content in a way.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to agree that it is absolutely a PR faux pas, like, to come out and say, there's going to be DLC for the game that's going to come out after the game's released, which it hasn't done yet. But knowing how these development cycles probably work, like, they will have spent most of their time making the engine and everything and all those developer tools. And I'm pretty much certain that over the next month, those developers are going to be working on this and finishing it up. So it wouldn't probably have been ready for release when the rest of Spider-Man's coming out, especially with disc printing and everything needing to happen like a month beforehand. So I would absolutely say, like, there's been situations where DLC has been on the disc when the game's launched, and that's really stupid. And it comes out, and I think that developers should learn to stop doing that, or at least stop leaving evidence of that, because it's really stupid. But I'm excited for Spider-Man. I'm not excited for the DLC because I don't know if I'm going to enjoy Spider-Man so much yet that I want that DLC. So in a way, I feel kind of burnt out on it already. It's a faux pas, but depending on how the game turns out, if it turns out excellent, then I'll probably be buying the DLC. But I'm not going to buy the digital deluxe for DLC I don't know I'm going to like. So
they're not doing themselves any favors by telling us that one of the first DLC packages is about Felicia Hardy, because Felicia Hardy is boring as shit. So I'm not, like, when I think of Spider-Man, I mean, Spider-Man has the, like, quintessential rogues gallery of villains. So if you're going to release DLC content, why would you make one of them about Black Cat when you have, like, an infinite supply of fantastic, like, quirky villains that you could use?
Yeah.
I mean, let's assume that Black Cat DLC also has some sort of new villain in it as well, which would be nice. But I would like to believe that the second one, labelled Turf War, has something to do with Sandman, because it has the word turf in it. That's what I would hope.
Well, Shocker has been confirmed as in the game now, Adrian. I know he's one of your favourites.
Yes, yeah. He's probably my favourite Marvel villain of all. But yeah, I've seen the gameplay with him in it, so I'm excited for that.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm a sucker. I'll buy it. There's no dodging that. I still think it's going to be an extremely good game. But speaking of extremely good games, go for
Cyberpunk 2077. So I was up late playing World of Warcraft the other night, and one of my friends got super excited because he was all like, "Oh my god, the Twitch account for Cyberpunk 2077 is actually streaming right now, and it's like showing a countdown timer or something." So I hopped on over there and I checked it out, and sure enough, it's like a black screen, like a DOS screen, and it started loading, basically. It was like uploading data. And so I sat there with that in the background while I was playing World of Warcraft, and it got to 99%, and then we sat there for like half an hour waiting at 99% for it to finish. And at the same time, we're talking about it because there was like a code that some people had decoded, and it was like code for a PNG image. I'm like, I swear to God, if this ends up being just a Twitch stream to show an image, I'm gonna be really annoyed. But no, instead it was 48 minutes of Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay, and it looks really, really good. Like, I'm, as we all know, I'm a huge RPG fan, and I'm super excited about this because RPGs and sci-fi are like two of my favorite things to put together. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about it, but I'm also a little bit concerned. Not because of what I've been seeing, but a lot of what I've been seeing other people seeing out of this stuff, where they're highlighting things like, is this game going to respect conversations about like transgender and being transgender or living with a prosthetic? Because on the flip side, you go over to like the Reddit communities, and there's a lot of people in there that are like, I'm going to play a human purist. And it's like that's never been the sort of message that Cyberpunk's been trying to get across, right? It's like the message that Cyberpunk's trying to get across is, you know, there's hopefulness in humanity, especially in the fact that we can make ourselves so much dramatically better. And there's the whole conversation of
transhumanism, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah, like how far is too far, and like, are we still human if we do that, is a really cool conversation, but it needs to be treated with a lot of respect. And I can see why people are concerned when the gameplay trailer they're seeing is like, look at the boobs. So like, you know, they literally highlighted the fact that it's very much an adult game. But I'm excited. I'm hoping that's not what happens. I'm hoping that they come out and it actually is as respectful to the whole cyberpunk transhumanism ideal as, you know, a lot of other media has been. So yeah.
So two things about all of this. First thing, I'm really, really glad that it was only 48 minutes of gameplay and not a minute longer, because my nipples can stay wet for so long. Second thing, as far as the transhumanism stuff goes, counterpoint, and this is an interesting one in terms of the theme, and I don't know if this is true of all of them, but I think it might be. Have you noticed that the Ripperdocs are actually pure human and don't have enhancements?
Yes.
Yeah. So that could be one of the angles to that, in terms of the pros and cons of not being enhanced.
Yeah.
So I think there might be some dialogue in game around that purposefully.
Yeah, because the guy that she goes and sees and gets the upgrades from, he points out the fact that, you know, are you sure you want me to do it? Because, you know, I'm just a standard human. I've got shaky hands. That is one thing that he highlights. I wonder if that's a character point for him, with him not choosing to get himself upgraded in those ways.
I seem to remember the devs talking about it at an interview sometime earlier in the year, and I'm pretty certain they made a point that was common of a bunch of the Ripperdocs, because they all sort of did that. I don't know. It's kind of like, you know, don't drink your own Kool-Aid.
I see that kind of like human purity angle in game as a narrative like element, but not indicative of the message of the game.
Yes.
Like, I think that the game can have that as an element of like, oh, some people think that modifications are impure, but that's just one element in a rich, detailed world. And I think in general that the systems of the game and the overall setting sort of support a more this is fucking awesome kind of angle. Like, yeah.
I don't expect them to do like what they did in Prey earlier last year, because in Prey you could choose how many of the Typhon upgrades you actually implant in your body, and the consequence that it has to you in game is actually a real decision you have to make, because some of, like, say for example, the automated turrets on that base in Prey actually start firing at you if you become too much Typhon, as one of the mechanics. So it's like a risk-reward kind of payoff, and you can play the game to the end, either end of that sort of spectrum. But like, I agree, I think that you would definitely push towards having cool shit.
If they can handle it in the same way that Deus Ex handled it, I will be really happy, because like that handles it really well. It puts you in the position of somebody that, you know, had these modifications and kind of has to live with it, and you still get to make a decision as to, you know, which direction you want to go, or which direction you want to see humanity go. I think in this, it sounds like you're kind of starting off as just pure human and then adding on modifications yourself. And making that decision along the way as to how far you're willing to go. Like, I think that's a really cool concept.
Yeah, given some of the like combat mechanics on display, I'm going all the way because some of the shit in that is so awesome. Like, so I just wanted to mention like the actual shooting combat in the game. When I first saw it, I'm like, okay, this is kind of a bit Borderlandsy. There's damage numbers popping up, but then some of the stuff that the character starts doing, like their gun has a thing where you can track where the bullets are going to ricochet, so you can like shoot around corners, and then there's like slow-mo dashing, double jumping, wall climbing, like there's like the gun that locks onto, like bullets lock onto the enemy, like that gun in Fifth Element, and like bullets track. And then there's the freaking most awesome thing in the gameplay where the character hacks one of the enemies. Did you guys see that? So he like hacks one of the enemy grunts, and then like logs into this like UI network of like the entire enemy gang, and it's like this virtual reality world. And then you can like hack into the other enemies in that gang and like weaken their security, and you can like do things where they disable the ability for the enemies to use their own guns through like hacking them. It just looks so awesome, so cool.
I love that stuff.
And if anyone wants to saw my arms off IRL and give me those mantis blades, I'm all on board for that. Holy crap. That's so good. The bit in the gameplay that really rocked my world was when they were having that shootout in the abandoned sort of floor of that building. And like the main protagonist was aware that there was a dude in the next room, and she was lining up to start busting the door open. But the dude in the next room just starts firing at her through the wall with like this machine gun, and you're literally trying to dodge like as this wall's exploding around you. And I was like, man, that is so freaking cool. That just you do not care about the terrain, like you will just go for it no matter what, and then you have to find a different way, sort of puzzle-wise, to get an angle on the guy and take him out. That just, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Give it to me
and
now.
it automatically wins in my book because there's an awesome-looking shotgun, and good shotguns in games, that's my favorite. So
Soundtrack looks good too.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Anyway. So, Nintendo announced about 1 million different indies this week. A few good highlights. Into the Breach is coming out on Nintendo Switch, which is one that we talked about earlier in the year. It was this year, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm sure it was this year.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. And, that's an awesome game. Any others that you saw that stood out, Christian?
I really like Untitled Goose Game.
Yes.
Did you guys see that?
I was going to bring that one up.
It's a game where you play a goose, and the entire thing is just to be as much of a jerk as you can to the humans.
Yeah.
And you need to like bite them on the ass, steal their stuff, and chuck it in the water. Like, you just have to be a jerk goose, and it's awesome.
I love it. The gameplay videos for that popped up online went viral some time ago, and it just looks so funny. Like, it looks great.
So they've actually gone with the final title of Untitled Goose Game, haven't they? That's so good.
And the developer's called House.
House.
Just House. It's just very...
They should have just called it Goose.
Goose.
There's actually a really funny thing I saw around on Twitter where the publishers, so the people that were that are publishing the game now, that when they saw the gameplay video that went viral, they basically posted up on Twitter just now showing how they actually became the publisher. And they went and sent an email to the developers, and they were like, do you want a publisher? It's really cute. So yeah, like it's just a really funny, cute looking game. So
yeah, nice. All right, what else is going on, Christian?
This actually happened last week, but we didn't catch it, which is the Lego Twitter account tweeted like a teaser for Lego Overwatch coming out. I thought that was worth mentioning because I think that sounds really fun. Like,
hang on, an actual video game as opposed to just cool collectible models? That's what we're talking about?
It's just a teaser at the moment. It's just the party, select your character screen from Overwatch, and it just says Heroes Wanted. And then there's little Lego minifigs characters loading into the slots. But I don't think... I'm not sure if it's a game or an actual building set.
I bet it's a set because somebody goes and replies... Like, somebody replies, like, when does the set come out? And Lego just replies
more
with
information.
More information. Yeah.
So
coming soon.
Who knows? Maybe at some point there'll be a game or some tie into the actual Overwatch game when it comes out, like a skin or something. I just think that sounds really fun.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that some of the characters would be out of whack size-wise, I would have assumed that they'd do like a minifigs collection set.
Nah, they've got
that, like the blind.
They've got all those big. They've got all those big figures for like the Marvel characters, like Hulk and Thing. They could easily make a Reinhardt in that size.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just some sprays in game or something, emblems.
Yeah.
Yeah, could do that.
But yeah, that sounds fun.
It'll sell. That's for sure. There's a lot of people who will buy that.
Yeah.
That is not a doubt. So there was an interesting one from Xbox this week. Microsoft has announced there's a new subscription service that they're going to be launching real soon called the Xbox All Access plan. So basically what it is think about your mobile phone, where you often, most people don't tend to buy a mobile phone outright. They tend to go on a plan where they actually get it included, on the plan and sort of pay a chunk of it each month until they own the thing outright.
Fools.
Over
Yeah, I was
the
going to
course
say
of a couple of
suckers.
years.
Yeah,
I just buy that, right?
yeah,
A
me
lot
too.
of people do that, yeah. So this is kind of the same thing. So Microsoft are doing a couple plans for Xboxes where for the first tier, they're going to offer it $21.99 US per month over the course of 2 years. Subscribers get an Xbox One S. They also get Xbox Live Gold and the Game Pass. And if you want to go up to $34.99 US per month, you get the same thing, but with the Xbox One X. So it worked out. They did the math on it. And it worked out that over the entire course of that 2 year period, by the end of that period, you'll actually end up owning the console without paying any extra for what the cost of the Xbox Live Gold and Game Pass would be. And you actually save about sort of $20-ish on the console overall for that period too. So in terms of value for money, it's a pretty damn good deal. And it's a really... I think it's a super smart way to get over one of the biggest barriers to entry, which is the upfront cost of the console for people looking to get into buying an Xbox, and particularly for people who might consider it as a second console, which I think is where a lot of people have ended up landing. That might actually be a hell of a lot more viable option for a lot of folk out there. So, good on Microsoft for having a crack at a new format for this. I think if this works, I would not be surprised if we see this available at the time of an entire new console generation launch. And that, when you're actually getting people at that point into your walled garden and, part of your ecosystem at a low entry price like that, that could be a game changer if they play their cards correctly.
I mean, we were talking about the store stuff yesterday, and we weren't talking about consoles, but this is a really good example, I think, of a really smart move that's also kind of player positive. Because that's a lot of stuff, like getting the actual hardware in addition to the Game Pass. So you're getting their subscription game model. But you're just getting, okay, this month you get to play Halo. Like that's going to be really great. I could see a lot of parents investing in this for their kids, because like that's a hell of a Christmas present, right? Like we're just gonna pay for an Xbox One for you for the next 2 years, then it'll be all yours. Like that, I think that's a super smart move. I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, people still have to qualify for it. Like, I think there's some financial checking that needs to take place with, credit history and that kind of thing. But, aside from that, I mean, the Game Pass is really ramping up now. They're getting some good titles on that. They've recently added Doom 2016, and I think Wolfenstein New Order is on there as well, if not Wolfenstein 2 New Colossus. So, yeah, there's definitely some good stuff coming to that. And, Microsoft have got their heads in the right place as far as things that they're trying. So that's
my concern with this is that if they do follow the phone model too closely in the end, where they iterate on the Xbox more often, so that by the time you have finished paying off your Xbox, there's a new one out that you have a desire to re-up on. Like I hate to see a world where there's a new version of the Xbox coming out every 2 years so that you can jump to the next one once you finish paying off. So
please God, no.
True.
Please God, no. As a game developer, that is a terrifying thought. Like phone hardware is usually fairly... Oh, actually, no, I'm not even going to say that. It's not fairly straightforward, because then Apple goes and releases a new phone with a screen that has a notch on it, and you have to change everything about the app you made. Like, oh God, please no.
or Samsung Galaxy Edge.
Yeah. No. Oh, well, we'll wait and see what happens with that. Last thing for tonight, just a very quick Gamescom wrap up. So, Christian, you saw some stuff that you wanted to chat about.
There were a bunch of new sort of release dates and trailers for a bunch of games, but the one that excites me the most is Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice, which is the FromSoft sort of Japanese mythological Souls-like game. They showed off some new gameplay and confirmed the release date for 22nd of March next year. And the gameplay looks so good. Like, for anyone who hasn't been following this, it is really like a hybrid between Tenchu and Dark Souls. The mobility is you're climbing on rooftops, you're grappling on top of enemies and flipping around, and it's so much more mobile than any of the other Souls games. And it just seems like it strikes I think it'll draw a lot of people in because it's more straight actiony than that more sort of sword and shield, careful timing that Dark Souls has. Like that's some of that stuff still there, but it's definitely more fast paced, and it just looks awesome.
Man, it's been a good week for gameplay reveals.
Yes,
really?
it definitely has.
Been some excellent stuff, and last week too, actually, with the Doom stuff and the what was the other one we saw last week? It was on tip of my tongue. The Red Dead stuff. That's it. Yeah. So anyway, on that topic, we're going to jump into tonight's main focus. Now, it is, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the final episode of the podcast for August, which of course means that we, as of next week, are about to launch into some shit. So everything is about to kick off. So peak season is upon us, and peak season hype has been on us for a while, but it's ramping up to get ready to explode over everywhere as of next week. So tonight we wanted to just chat a little bit about some of the stuff that we're super looking forward to in the next 3 months, and a bit of a rundown of some of the highlights, just to kind of, because we don't necessarily get to talk about this stuff every week. I mean, we kind of cherry pick some news items and talk about what we've been playing, but in terms of what's coming up and what we're really looking forward to and going to be focusing on, we don't tend to sort of talk about it in this context as often. So this is a good chance for us to kind of, I guess, a rallying point for resetting the table ready for the next round.
So
yeah, exactly. So we're going to split this up into a quick sort of September, October, November discussion, and then just a couple of things to finish off with for December, being a slightly lighter month out of them. But from now until Christmas, we've got a bunch of things to look forward to. So let's open it up and kick off with September in chronological order. So who's got something they want to pick off the menu for September that they're really excited about coming?
I think we all share one, right?
Destiny 2 Forsaken.
Okay, you can talk about that, Matt. Go ahead.
Let's go Destiny first, because chronologically that is the next thing. That is on the 4th, which, if I'm not mistaken, is next Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was not entirely sold on picking up Destiny 2 Forsaken again because I got back into WoW. And then they released the trailer recently, and your Guardian speaks, and suddenly I'm pre-ordering it.
Oh, really? I didn't even notice that.
The Guardian speaks again. Like, the whole thing about Forsaken and what that trailer really emphasized is this is now personal. This is a personal story about your Guardian, because they're speaking with the other Vanguard after Cade's died, and they're talking about, like, we can't leave the city undefended, and your Guardian's like, well, fuck that, I'm going out to get revenge. And I'm like, oh, hell yes, I'm so down for this. And Bungie did a brief little, like, 5-minute vidoc where they were talking about how they're bringing back a lot of old stuff from Destiny 1 that they feel like players have kind of missed. And I definitely think the Guardian voice is the thing that they're kind of talking about as one of those things. Because, yeah, if this is going to be a more personal story, then actually being able to hear your Guardian, like, flip the bird at the guy that killed Cade, that's going to be pretty satisfying.
Mm-hmm. They showed some footage of the new raid with that vidoc as well, which just a little bit of a sneak peek at that. That looks really cool. So it was the city of the Silent City. Is that what it's called? Something like that. Yeah.
City.
Which is the Awakened sort of home city, from what I understand. Yeah, man, the visuals look super different to the Empress Palace, which we have already been playing around in for quite some time now. But I'm gonna be playing it too, Matt. So yep, it'll be good. It'll be a good time. I'm hoping that we can get some of the old guard from the original sort of crew back in to do some of the raid content. Because otherwise, I'm going to have to go and find some pickup groups, and that's a pain in the ass.
I really hope they find their footing. Like I really hope that Destiny 2 Forsaken really, hammers it back in that it's like I'm going to pick up and do every night when I get home from work. Like sit down and play it for an hour. Yeah. And do my usual daily routine in it before I go off and do other games. Like I want to get back into that with Destiny. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, until 3 days later, where we all get very distracted. So, Adrian, kick us off. What is exciting you about Spider-Man?
I'll give you one here. Oh, Spider-Man. Okay. Sorry. I thought we were talking about October. Look, like I said last time, I've sort of gone media black on Spider-Man, but I've been playing Spider-Man games since the first one came out on the Nintendo and loved it. I think there was even a DOS version I remember playing before that. So I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, got tons of the comics and love them all. So I've I saw the first few trailers with a couple of the villains that are announced, but I'm really looking forward to just seeing who pops up, getting into the game and hoping for a few surprises. Hearing about the length not being long does disappoint me a little bit, but it might be the sandbox game where I might try to go full completionist on it. I don't often find myself going all the way with sandbox games, but I think Spider-Man might be the one.
I think a platinum trophy game, this one will be, for sure.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, getting the impression. So, all right, let's make a very quick prediction because some of the footage that got shown sort of indicates that there is a hidden villain of some sort that hasn't been revealed yet who might be like a mastermind of some sort. Who do you think it might be? Any theories?
Well, so we've got basically the foundation of a Sinister Six appearing. So we've got Rhino, Electro, Scorpion, Vulture.
That Hunter guy?
Mr. Negative.
Mr. Negative, Mr. Negative isn't Sinister Six classically. What did you say, Christian?
Isn't there something the Hunter or something?
Craven.
Yeah, Craven.
Craven. Has it been shown? I didn't see him anywhere.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah,
I thought he was there.
So I mean, there's a few people that could pop in there. I suspect they may even drop Venom and like have him rock up just for the shock factor of having him in the game and having him be the final reveal. Because I can't think of any Spider-Man villains that would really take people's breath away as like a big reveal that they've been holding back, because his roster of villains is so publicly knowable. I can't think of anyone that would be really shocking unless perhaps it was someone like Venom who you wouldn't expect.
We do know that Norman Osborn is in the game, but we haven't seen any Goblin stuff yet.
That's so predictable, right? That can't be.
It is.
My personal, I know very little about comic book villains and comic books in general, but just from like a storytelling standpoint, maybe it's somebody from outside Spider-Man's normal villains. Maybe it's something from the wider Marvel universe, because that could be a surprise.
Yep.
Like Dr. Doom show up or something like that.
I don't know, but just something completely outside of the normal Spider-Man wheelhouse.
Yeah. I'm hoping it will be the classic Spider-Man villain, the Spot.
I've seen the Spot.
I'm hoping for Doc Ock. I think that'd be a really cool reveal.
Doc Ock would be cool.
So,
if we're talking about that one trailer though, where they show all the villains around Spider-Man, and then he kind of looks up and he's like, "It's you." Like, I think a better twist is that if that's not a villain at all, and it's like Iron Man turning up to help him out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Well, Avengers Tower is on that, so it could be.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Or because it's an Insomniac game, it'd be great if it was just Ratchet and Clank. So he looks up and Ratchet and Clank are there, and then they just like start shooting enemies with the Winterizer gun that turns them to snowmen. Perfect.
Sure.
That's what I'm hoping.
Sure. Let's go with that. All right. Well, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Who is interested in picking up a look at this one?
Oh, I do. Here we go. That's my opinion on Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Wow.
I'm sure this game's going to be good, but I haven't played Rise yet, so I'm not into this until I play Rise.
Okay, interesting.
I've played Rise. I am definitely interested in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I think the storytelling looks really, really interesting, that she's kind of responsible for all the bad stuff that's happening. I think that's really cool. I'm looking forward to picking it up, but I think I'm going to be a little bit busy in September, so it'll probably be a purchase later on the year for me.
Yeah, I think that it's maybe one of those games that because Rise certainly wasn't super spoiler dangerous, like you didn't have to run the risk of finding out something that you weren't supposed to with that maybe this is a low risk game as well in terms of you can leave it later and not have to worry about it. But that being said, I'll still buy it and play it on release because I'll probably finish Spider-Man as quickly as I can. And it's 1 week later, and then a little over a week after that, 2 weeks actually, in fact, is the first episode of Life is Strange Season 2, which I'm very much looking forward to. So that'll be a really quick dip, though, because that's only episode 1 of the new season, so they're going to be doing the episodic release model. So, it's not going to take a whole bunch of time to get through that. Those episodes are typically around 3 hours in length at most. But they've shown a bit of footage of the new characters. It's 2 young Mexican boys by the look of it. So they've gone for a bit more racial diversity instead of having the young women. So that's interesting. But whether there's any tie-ins to the previous season remains to be seen. So we'll find out then. All right, let's move into October. I'm going to throw to Adrian again because I know that he's real excited about this one. So,
And And of course, we're talking about Super Mario Party. No. It's Mega Man 11. Oh, yeah. I'm super pumped for Mega Man 11. It's going to be great. Especially after the blistering disappointment that was Mighty Number 9.
Oh my god.
That abomination of a game that should never be spoken of again.
Yeah.
So I think that's still fresh in everyone's mind. So everyone's like, yeah, Mega Man 11, we're down for that. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Loving the new art style. Loving that we've got a brand new set of Robot Masters. And it's nice that they've added a few new mechanics into the mix as well. So that'll be fun. Do you guys know about the slight variation they've made to the formula?
No, I don't
I know
know.
there's a time stop mechanic, but I don't know what the second one is.
Yeah, all it is, it's called,
So-
I think it's called Overdrive Gears. Basically, Mega Man gets equipped with these two special gears. One's red and one's blue. All they are is like a mode that you can flip while playing. So one of them slows down time, and the other one increases your firepower. But while it's active, there's a meter under your health bar that fills up, and once it fills up, you start taking damage. So
Okay.
you can only have either one of them active for a short amount of time. You can flip between them, but that meter, can only fill up so far before you start getting hurt. So I really like it because it should open up the playing field for a bit of bullet hell, where you might need to use some time slow mechanics, and then boosting up your powers is always fun. So I mean, weapon experimentation has always been a big part of Mega Man. So with any luck, you might be able to power up. I think you can actually power up the boss weapons that you collect, which is fun.
Ooh.
And then one tiny little addition that I really love is that they've finally changed it so that when Mega Man swaps to a boss's weapon, he actually physically changes now. It's not a great deal, but he gains like a little bit of extra filigree on his armor, and rather than just a color palette swap.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm excited, but yeah, my shelves are covered in Mega Man collectibles. I even have the Mega Buster, the Think Geek Mega Buster, that my fiance got me for my birthday one year. So now and then I like to take that off the shelf and pretend I'm shooting robots, and she rolls her eyes at me. But that's our relationship. So
That slowdown
All right,
mechanic
well-
sounds like cute because, like in the old Mega Man games, how like slowdown from the
Jank,
processing
yeah.
would actually be
Yeah.
sort of you'd be able to dodge better or like not fall down a cliff because you like the game's chugging. They've kind of embrace that.
It'll be good, and I think like from a bit of the gameplay footage I've seen, it looks just totally classic. So
Cool.
it should be fun, and I think it's going to please everyone. It's going to please the diehard fans. It's going to please newcomers. So yeah, it'll be good. I'm excited, and I mean, let's face it, it's just fantastic to have this torrent of Mega Man rain after such a long period of not having anything from Capcom. So hopefully it does super, super well, and then just keep pumping out more Mega Man content, because that's what we all want. And by all, I mean
Capcom's
me.
been kicking ass the last few years. They've done some good stuff. Like we've had the Resident Evil 7 success. We've had Monster Hunter. And oh man, was Dragon Ball Fighter Z Capcom as well?
No, that's
Ugh,
Namco.
no idea.
Or am I getting them? That's Namco. Okay,
But
cool.
you're right, the
Getting those mixed
Capcom
up.
are on a comeback for sure. Like I remember back in the mid 2000s, people used to call Capcom Cap God as like a nickname because they were so awesome. And I feel like this is the return of Cap God.
Yay!
Nice. Yeah,
Cool.
the fact that it's 2018 and we're talking about new Mega Man games makes me really happy.
You know what would be super awesome is if and this is one game where I would totally be on board for DLC, is if they just had like DLC Robot Masters for Mega Man 11.
Oh, yeah.
So you have the classic
Oh, yeah.
8, and then they're just like, oh, here's a new DLC Robot Master. It's, I don't know, Paper Man. And then look, here's a new one. It's Toilet Roll Man. Or here's, empty juice. I'm looking at things on my desk. Empty juice box man. Like
Toilet roll on the desk.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, there's toilet roll on my desk. Or cat food man. Or, back scratcher man. You're getting an insight
Jesus.
into my life. But yeah, there you go.
Nice. I'm just trying to think of like the whole synergy with weapons that are more effective against other bosses. So if you want to have like Toilet Roll Man and then get a weapon based on that, then you'd have to have Kids Neighborhood Tree Man.
Yep. I've got
Stuff like that. So
I've got barbecue sauce man and half empty soy sauce bottle man. So I don't know. There's probably some cool weakness in there somewhere.
Wow.
Sweet. All right. That's the next release for sure.
Yep.
All right. So Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I just wanted to touch on for a sec. Now, Assassin's Creed, has been going through a bit of an interesting sort of spot over the last year or so, because it seems that they're on a bit of a comeback if they continue on their trajectory that Origins sort of kicked off on, because there seems to be a bit of new enthusiasm around the Assassin's Creed franchise after they took the 1 year break and came back with something pretty solid. So I have not played Origins yet, but it's actually been hovering on my to-do list for a little while now, because there's been such great feedback about how that game went, and I'm real tempted by this one. It might fall into the whole sort of busy time of year, so can't get to it right now kind of thing. But I don't know. Like I'm feeling reasonably positive about Assassin's Creed.
I've been seeing some sentiment online that Odyssey is getting not as much hype as Origin did, and it may be because they've gone 2 years in a row again. Because people did like that year off for them to sort of work on the formula a bit, and that Ubisoft have actually already confirmed in response to the feedback that there is no Assassin's Creed game next year. They are taking another year off. And I feel like that announcement was kind of in a bit of a defense mode, because people are like worried, are you just going back to an annual format now? And they're like, no, we're still going to do it. So I don't know if it was smart for them to do 2 in a row like this.
Yeah.
It might be to do with other releases they got planned too, because we may see a Watch Dogs 3 next year or something like that. So
yeah, I'm personally really excited about any sort of franchise that decides to go and rethink itself a little bit, especially one that's been as ongoing as Assassin's Creed, because like once you got through those first couple of games, oh god, like it got super repetitive. But this whole thing of them going into a bit more fantasy, like they're basically a fantasy action game with assassins. That's really cool. Like that's a really cool departure from the sort of weird sci-fi memory thing they had going on before. So I'm totally down with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Yeah,
I feel like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty are the two poster children for franchise fatigue.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah. And Call of Duty is also coming out in October with Black Ops 4. So I'm not going to play that, but I'm sure there's going to be millions and millions of people who do.
Who do. Assassin's Creed makes me think of the end credits of 22 Jump Street, you know, where they start showing like all like the 20 sequels. So when I think of if someone came up to me and said, have you played Assassin's Creed, you know, Space Adventure 9? I'd be like, oh no, but apparently that exists, and I totally believe that it did. So there's just so many of those games.
Probably would, yeah. All right, well, Black Ops 4, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that there's none of us that are super enthused about that game, but recognise its existence more than anything.
I will be playing Battlefield 5, though, which also comes out in October.
Yeah, I'd be keen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Super psyched.
So why Battlefield 5? Why that?
I've always been much more of a fan of the Battlefield franchise over Call of Duty for the scale of it. Battlefield has big open maps with vehicles and planes, and it's more of like a wartime simulator, I guess, rather than just an arcade shooter. Whereas, Call of Duty feels more like an arcade shooter. And this one's going back to World War II, which I'm a fan of as a game setting. So, and there seems to be some new changes to make it even slower than previous games, which for a lot of people is a turn off. But for me, I like that sort of stuff. So things like having spawning with only a limited amount of ammunition and needing to sort of squat up with a buddy who can resupply you rather than just always being able to just run sort of headlong straight into it. So little things like that to make you emphasize squad play more, I think are really cool.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that only because I know that you'll play it, and therefore I'll play it.
Yay!
Because I've always enjoyed Battlefield, but only ever with Christian, funnily enough, because he got me into it, and I have some really fond memories of, I think, going back to Battlefield 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's starting at Battlefield 3 and then 4, and then I'm looking forward to 5. Squatting up and getting some stuff done. Yeah, I've always enjoyed that aspect of it. I rarely ever played it on my own. Like, it was always in a group.
All right, well, Mario Party is also on the list for October, so we may see some people that we know pick that up and check it out. But all leading up to the big one. So it's actually going to be happening over PAX weekend for a few of us. So I know that Matt, myself, and Jam are not going to get a chance to touch this until we get back. But Red Dead Redemption 2. All right, where are we all sitting on this one? I'm curious.
I tried playing the first Red Dead on PS3, and I tried 3 or 4 times, and I couldn't get into it. And I suspect it may be a bit of why I don't like GTA. I don't know what it is. I just can't get into it. So I'm seeing Red Dead 2. It does make me want to have another go. But Christian pointed out that there hasn't been any remakes or anything available on the PS4, so I may not get that opportunity by the look of it.
Okay.
I'm definitely down for Red Dead 2. I'm not like super like losing my mind and excitement over it, but I think it's going to be a really good game and I'm going to enjoy it a lot. But it's not like one of my all-time favorites, but it does look really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed Red Dead Redemption 1. I'm going to enjoy 2, but I do think it is also massively overhyped.
Yep,
like
I completely agree with that.
And it's actually kind of fatiguing. Like,
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I did not play Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Revolver, so this is going to be my first foray into the franchise.
Yeah, I did play Red Dead Redemption at least. So
yeah, I have been contemplating like actually picking it up on Xbox because they've got the backwards compatible version you can buy digitally. But again, time now is probably not the right time to be doing it.
Yeah.
So
I also think with Red Dead as well, like people, it is going to be huge because it's a Rockstar game. But I think that people are overestimating Rockstar's presence and that GTA 5 was a juggernaut, not because it's necessarily just a Rockstar game, but because it's GTA 5. And because Red Dead Redemption didn't sell like gangbusters. It sold well, but nothing like Grand Theft Auto does. And I don't know whether they've built up enough name recognition to really explode the way Grand Theft Auto does. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the online component's also the deciding factor for me because I'm much more excited for a Red Dead Online perhaps than I am for just the game on its launch with single player. Like I'll play through the single player content and I'm sure I'll love it, but the possibility and the prospect of actually running around as a cowboy with a bunch of friends in an online living world is the thing that really captures my imagination.
Yeah, because my favorite thing about Red Dead Redemption 1 was the fact that it was actually a fairly chilled game. Like compared to GTA where it's constantly action, like Red Dead Redemption 1, you could just spend a lot of time just kind of, on your horse, just wandering around, just looking at the scenery and just kind of chilling out. It was actually really quite interesting in that respect. I enjoyed going and hunting and getting animal pelts and buying new suits and all that. I kind of hope that they do that with Red Dead Redemption 2, and if they do that online, that's going to be really cool. Like that will make me actually really excited. So.
Definitely agree with the overhyped warning label, though.
Yeah.
I think, All right, well, October, the only other thing we've got on the list is Call of Cthulhu, which is coming out on the 30th, and I'm looking forward to that from the horror, eldritch, eldritch horror kind of perspective, good mystery kind of spooky game with that kind of element in it. Looks very cool. Don't know a whole lot about it, though, so we'll have to find out a bit more when it gets closer. But for time's sake, let's move into November. Some interesting stuff in November, kicking off with Hitman 2. Won't talk too much about that because we talked a bit about it last week. Suffice to say, Hitman Season 1, absolutely fantastic game. Hitman 2, more of the same, plus all of the Hitman 1 content. Bring it on now. Would love to have that instantly. So, yeah. And I would encourage you guys to check it out too because I think it'll be a lot of fun to do some of the maps, some of the assassinations as a group.
Yeah.
A bit of commentary going on.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, can even do some fun streaming stuff perhaps. That could be a good time.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. All right, anyone excited about Spyro?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Yes.
I am.
Same.
Yeah, I love Spyro. I love it. And I'm very I spent tons of time playing it as a kid. I have fond memories of even being on the phone to my cousins in New Zealand and like helping them through the game because they were stuck in places. So yeah, it holds a very special place in my mind. So yeah, I'm really excited for the new Spyro Reignited trilogy.
The only thing I've seen about Spyro recently is people online complaining that they made some kangaroo character look too sexy.
Yeah, but like, who doesn't need more sexy kangaroo in their life?
Yeah.
Bring it on.
There was a picture of one of the first dragons you meet, and they were comparing it to the old version. In the old version, he looks super dorky, but then in the new version, he looks like a daddy.
Yeah.
And it's like this is
Again, all good things.
Exactly.
I don't see any downside
Going
to
for the
this.
sort of furry crowd with that.
Yeah, I think they are.
All
Not even joking. It will either go for furries or it's going to create a new generation of them. So
Yeah. There are also scalies as well who like the lizard folk. So
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd enjoy. I'm a big Lizard Man
I've got
fan.
no
Maybe
comment.
take it a bit further.
Jesus. All right, Christian, next couple of yours.
yeah, so
go for
Artifact, which is Valve's collectible card game. So I'm very excited to see that coming out towards the end of November. And then Valkyria Chronicles 4, which I can't pretend I've been a loyal fan of the franchise because I played I didn't actually even finish the first one, but I did enjoy what I played. And then the sequels to Valkyria Chronicles were famously either crap or inaccessible because they were like PSP Japanese exclusive.
Yep.
And then there was some weird third-person character action spin-off that nobody liked. But everyone seems to be back on board for Valkyria Chronicles 4, which seems like a return to like this spirit of the original game. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that. And if the reviews seem good, I'll definitely pick that up.
Yeah.
I'm definitely keen for that one as well. Very excited. I played all the way through the first one and loved it. So looking forward to this.
Well, Artifact looks intriguing. I'm very curious to check that out as well. Valkyria, I don't know. I'll wait until you guys have a chance to sample that and see what goes on. All right, so Fallout 76. Now, this is a pretty big one. Now, realistically, this is out on the 14th of November. We're probably going to start fiddling around with it before then because the beta will kick off at some time beforehand. Don't know exactly how early beforehand. Xbox One players are going to get it first. And I actually don't know what most of us will play this on. I would guess PC because it's PC release.
Yeah.
Of course, PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably will be. All right, who am I kidding?
Right, some kind of degenerate. Of course I'm going to play it on PC. Jeez.
I'm glad Jam's not on.
Yeah. Oh, look, Jam will probably pick PC as well. Now, Jam did actually say that this was one of the ones that she was super keen on. So this and Red Dead more than anything. So yeah, Fallout 76, the ultimate nuclear troll simulator. I'm all about that, baby. That sounds great. So yeah, we still don't know a lot about the game. Like, we can make some educated guesses based on what we know Fallout games to be like and some of the stuff that they showed off at QuakeCon. But there's a lot of questions still about what's actually going to fill up that massive map that they've talked about. So the map apparently being multiple times larger than the map on Fallout 4, and Fallout 4's map was not small. That was a huge area. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a good time, I think. Like people who enjoy running around doing the survival game thing and shooting monsters and building bases, which is me. I think it's going to be great.
Totally down. As long as we can get private servers. So I'm not on public servers getting trolled in the same way I might be on Grand Theft Auto, because that was a big turn off for me playing Grand Theft Auto online with friends. Was you would turn up on a server and just have to deal with assholes all the time.
Just griefing.
Yeah, like if we can get private servers and I can play with friends, and then it's basically like PvP can happen, but it's not you're very unlikely to have people trolling you or griefing you. Like that sounds excellent, and I'm super down. I've already got it pre-ordered, so.
Sounds fun.
Sweet.
The most important question, of course, is will they be adding some new kick-ass big band tunes? Because some keeps me coming back.
Yeah. Apparently, yes. Apparently, the answer is yes.
Yay!
So,
cool.
Yeah. It fills me with hope. All right, Pokemon fans, which I think is all of us. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, of course, coming out on the 16th of... hang on. I've got it listed down September, but that's wrong. I know it's in November. So yeah, that's Switch only, of course. For a bunch of us that are still playing Pokemon Go, I'm sure that there's going to be a look into that. I don't think I'm going to get super excited about this as opposed to what we're expecting the following year in terms of a main new franchise entry. But
I feel that way, and I'm pretty. You feel similarly, Adrian? Is that right?
Yeah, I think I will pick it up. I think just because, I'm on a Pokemon Go high at the moment now, so if it came out now, I'd buy it straight away. We'll see how I feel in November. Yeah. I'm pretty keen. I'm such a big Pokemon fan that I'll probably pick it up and play it and still enjoy it.
Yeah, Pokemon for me is a travel game. Like I'll play it whenever I'm going from point A to point B, so I will absolutely be picking it up. And it's based on the classic red and blue with new graphics, and I can have my Pokemon out all the time. I'm down. So yeah, I'm keen.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, and just moving into the end of October, we've got Darksiders 3. I've not played any of the Darksiders games before. I did pick up a free one from one of the PlayStation Plus freebies, so I'll check that out at some point. Looks like a lot of fun. So some early imagery of that game looking kind of promising, so I'll probably check that out.
You played the first two, Adrian, didn't you?
Yeah, I've played them both.
Yeah.
I like them. It's aesthetically, it looks like World of Warcraft if it was an action game. So, it's renowned for being ridiculous in its art style, but, it strikes a very particular chord with people when it comes to art. It looks fine. Like, I'm not super excited because it looks like more of the same.
Okay.
But, that could be a good thing, depending on people that really love it. So, I'm glad the franchise is still going and didn't die after the whole issue with THQ. So, I'm just glad it's alive, and I'll play it, and it'll probably be good.
There's a lot of hardcore
It's a franchise
fans.
that kind of lends itself to a fourth entry as well, though, realistically.
Oh,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Like,
Because it's all based on the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, so a fourth game would tie it up nicely if it got that far. Let's hope it does. So we'll see how we go. But from the gameplay I've seen so far, I'm not blown away by it. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's more of the same.
It's more of the same. Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. Yeah, I enjoyed the first two.
Okay.
It wasn't anything I was overly impressed with, but the third looks like more of the same, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I know there's a lot of people that are huge Darksiders series fans, and they're going to be all over it. So
Yeah, I agree. I think unfortunately the first two games they just suffered from they were just like copies of other games. It didn't none of them neither one or two really did anything unique. And even in 2, they had like a loot-based system, which was actually terrible. So that wasn't very good, I don't think. So
Darksiders 2 was being... the development was being finished as THQ was going under, and so like the back half of that game is famously a bit barren as well. Not much going on there because they were just trying to rush it out.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine.
All right, well, just tying things off with December, just a few things to wrap up. So speaking about more of the same, but potentially not a bad thing, Just Cause 4. So any fans of, hijinks of blowing everything in sight up and creating huge spectacles of destruction, that could be a thing that you're interested in. That one apparently is going to be a day dot release available on the Xbox Game Pass as well. So you'll be able to get Game Pass membership and play that without having to purchase the whole game, similar to what was able to do with Sea of Thieves. That's probably a good thing. And then we've got Smash and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight.
Hell yeah, that one I can tell you just barely even know what it's called, Luke. That's for me as a degenerate weeb. So that's the Persona 5 like dancing rhythm game, which I'm totally excited for because I love the Persona 4 dancing rhythm game. So yeah, that's all for me.
Nice.
All right.
And
Smash Bros, that has some wider appeal. I'm definitely excited for that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my boys will get Smash for Christmas, so I'll get to play a bit of it without having to pick it up myself. So it's a game that I expect I'll probably just sample and not really play seriously, but as a fun kind of side thing when it happens to be around, might have a tinker with it.
Yeah,
so,
I posited the idea of us all getting Smash and playing it together, but I'm not going to lie, I would just annihilate you guys.
We went toe to toe, Adrian. I don't know. I think we'd annihilate these guys. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'd team up and just destroy them.
I completely disagree. I think that you need to find a word that is even more serious than annihilation and apply that because I would be pants.
Yeah, I mean,
absolute pants.
You wouldn't know, Luke, but I do have a secret fighting game past, so you may see glimpses of it now and then in the future.
Some fire in the eyes.
Yep.
Yeah. It all stems back to old arcade days and hanging out with a mate and playing some arcade fighters and getting quite heavily into that. So I'm keen to sharpen my skills at some point.
Mm-hmm. And as far as stuff not mentioned on dates, because we don't know what the date is yet, there's just one remaining, and that is Tetris Effect, which apparently is still this year.
Yeah, and that's another game that I'm all about. So if anyone hasn't seen Tetris Effect, it's just Tetris, but it has this amazing aesthetic and this sort of chill soundtrack with beautiful music and kind of transcendental rhythms, and you can play it in VR, and I don't know, I just think it looks so calming and therapeutic, and I'm super, super excited for it.
It's a Tetris acid trip.
It's the creative director is Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who made Rez, which is another game I love, and like Rez Infinite was probably my favorite VR game I've played for a similar kind of acid trip feel. And yeah, everything Mizuguchi does is awesome. So I'm super, super keen for Tetris Effect.
Yep. We should probably mention as a disclaimer, kids don't do blocks.
No, don't do blocks. That's right.
I was hoping Tetris Effect was some kind of new Mass Effect spin-off, but
probably be better than the last
Probably.
one. Really, wouldn't it?
I liked Andromeda.
shots fired.
Tetris Effect is a game that a lot of people will just assume is just crap, like not crap, but people will overlook it because it's called Tetris. But a lot of people would actually dig it if they picked it up. So I encourage everyone to give it a look.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's a whole bunch of games. So everybody quickly, before we run out of time tonight, pick your number one thing that you're most hyped for in the next 3 months. And go, Matt.
That's not fair.
I never said it was
Spider-Man.
fair.
It has to be Spider-Man.
Spider-Man? Okay, cool. Christian?
Artifact.
Ooh, interesting. Adrian?
You get the idea.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to pick Fallout 76 for me. I'm actually probably most excited for that because I think that's going to have some real fun multiplayer with groups of friends appeal. And, who doesn't want to nuke everything in sight? So anyway, Tons and tons of good stuff. All right, so that is going to be it for tonight. We've talked about a whole bunch of fun games and stuff. We've got a whole bunch more to come. Not the least of which next week, of course, which is our regular Party Game of the Month episode. We are going to be reviewing what, Matt? Because it was your crazy pick. What's
it
the
was
game up next week?
Cultist Simulator.
That's it. Yeah, so all right, I'm going to throw to Christian now because I trust he'll do the best job of explaining this out of all of us. We still have our contest running for Party Game of the Month, so a quick reminder because you've got a week to get in for this round of it. How does that work, Christian?
Yes, so anybody who catches this in time can send your suggestions for a game to add to our Party Game of the Month list. To mail@partyloaded.com or on the Facebook Party Loaded, or you can tweet it at us at Party Loaded Show. And basically, we're going to choose one game suggestion that we're going to add to our list. And if we choose your game, then you'll win a copy of Cultist Simulator. Now, when I say choose your game, I mean add it to the list. I don't mean we have to actually roll it as our game for the month. So if we add your game to the list, you win Cultist Simulator.
Yeah, there you go. All right. And as far as other places to find us in the meantime, you can get us on YouTube at youtube.com/channelendgame. We will do some streaming on Twitch again at some point. So if you want to check us out there in the meantime, it's twitch.tv/partyloaded. But otherwise, in 7 days' time, we're going to be talking about some Cultist Simulator and getting ready for a whole bunch of other stuff. So, Matt, how much Destiny do you think we're going to be able to cram in before the show next week? Do you think that's actually likely?
I don't know. I might play a little bit of it. I would like to be able to get in there and actually sample a little bit of that story and see if Bungie can actually handle the nuance that I hope they get with Forsaken. But I don't know if I'm going to get a whole lot. We'll see what happens.
All right, so that's just a tiny bit of homework for both of us, and fit that in amongst our other stuff. Adrian, you've got some Guacamelee homework.
Yep.
See how you go with that.
Yes, sir.
And Christian, let's see you get out of that rank
Well,
one.
I'm going to be freed from the Hearthstone mines either way because the season's going to reset. So I'll be on to something else.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough.
Forced out of the rut. Nice. I like it.
Can I just say before we go as well, Cultist Simulator should be called Confusion Simulator because that's how well it's going for me at the moment.
Well, if cults aren't confusing, then they're too hard to hide. That's how it works.
That's a topic for another night.
That's right. So tune in next week when we go into all of that craziness. But for now, thanks for listening and good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.